let's take a look at how to block your work. And one of the reasons to block your work, if I show you here, I've knitted this as part of the squares for my blanket that I've been knitting all year. And because this is a rib stitch, even though it's got cables, it's a rib stitch, it knits up thinner even though it's the same amount of stitches here. Now, I could have made an adjustment when I cast on, but I want to open up the pattern. I want you to be able to see the cables. So if I show you the difference here, that's the size they all need to be, and that's the size it's come off my needles. So we can block our work, and to do that you need to get your knitting wet. So I mean, you could just do this under the tap, but so I'm going to get my piece wet, really wet, not just damp, really wet, dripping. And then don't screw it up into a ball. Try and squeeze out. See what I'm doing there? Squeeze out as much of the water as you can. So when I first looked at blocking, I couldn't get over how expensive official blocking mats were. So I had to think, and when I was at school, I went on a trip to Iceland and we had to take a sleeping mat with us. It's pretty much the same as a yoga mat, and it was sat in my wardrobe gathering dust, so I cut it up. So you could do the same, if either get a yoga mat, I think they're cheaper than what are sold as knit blocking mats. And I've drawn the shape that I want my block to fit to. But if you were doing a dress or a jumper, you could just get it wet, lay it flat on a towel and just leave overnight. So you're shaping it how you want it to be. But because I'm doing a block and I need it to fit a certain size, I'm going to pin it to the shape of the square I need. Now, I've knit this using acrylic wool because as I mentioned in the tutorial on yarn, I actually can't knit, I can't work with wool from a sheep or an alpaca. It makes me itch. So if you're using a natural fibre wool, if you check the instructions on the ball, you might find that you can iron press your finished item, in which case you could pin to the shape and then with a damp pillowcase or a tea towel, gently press with an iron over your work. But I'm not going to do that with acrylic because it will just shrivel up. So I'm just pinning to the size, and I've used these pins as well with the big glass heads so that they don't get lost in my stitches. Okay, so I've pinned that to shape, and then I leave that overnight. Usually I put it in the airing cupboard, lie it flat in the airing cupboard and leave that to dry. You'd actually be quite surprised at how long it takes to dry. You think it's going to be dry in a couple of hours, and it's not. It usually takes overnight. And then when you take the pins off, it will have remembered the size. Obviously this is a little bit smaller, but when I sew up, it will stretch the design out so that you can see it.